Hello. Welcome to the clog-builder video manual series, video 5. Today we're going to talk about using your project and using plugins. In previous episodes, we've talked about setting up the projects. So in this particular one, we'll go a little bit quick in this regard. We're going to set up a sample project that we're going to be working with. In this case, new project from template. We're going to go ahead and pick the STI panel project in this case. And we're going to call it plotly, because that's actually the name of the plugin that we're going to use as an experiment test. We're going to go ahead, we're going to create it in the common-lisp directory. The truth is it can be created in any local project directory, or I can use alternative directories. If you use an alternative directory, then you have to make sure that you start it up from the command line using the scripts that we'll talk about in a little bit, because they will go ahead and set the directory up as as a project-wide directory to use at the time you are editing and using the project and so forth. Okay, so let's go ahead now and select project directory, and we go ahead and our project has been created, compiled, and is there for us to take a look at. Anytime you're opening up the builder in general, if you had a brand new project, you'll see this idea of not loaded. That comes up when you're loading a file that hasn't been. You hit loaded. Happens to be in this case, it actually was loaded by the ASD project window when we said OK. So I have to look and see if we can update that so that it's automatically to loaded. But it does normally open loaded if in fact it is loaded. But this was already present on the screen at the time when we did this. Okay, anyways. Back to where we were. So like I said, this is our project. Our basic things are set up, and a number of scripts are actually set up as part of this process. So run-ocicl, run-ocicl bat, and run-ql bat. Of course, if you're not on Windows, you can remove the bat files. If you are planning to only working on Windows, then you can, of course, remove the 2 bash versions. Now, these are not chmodded, meaning you have to put bash run ql to use them. Or, like I said, alternatively speaking, of course, you can actually do a chmod, 775, and go ahead and then use them afterwards. Now, if you're going to be using OCICLs as a brand new project has been set up, you have to run the setup-ocicl, and that will basically set all the basic install, clog, and everything else necessary in your own little OCICL world. Okay, so that's the way that works. And in general, of course, again, using the project system like this, it's really great because anytime you want to start, for example, a new project or something. So in this case, we've created our directory, everything else. And let's go ahead, see plotly test, for example. And we can then at any point, we can go ahead and run our version. And that sets up everything perfect and ready to go. And boom, we're in our project, it's ready to start and everything else. In fact, let's go ahead and, well, I'll keep this open for use for our video here. Okay, so at that point, like I said, if you, of course, you don't have to use the command line, you can actually do this from within your particular Lisp version of REPL, as for example, putting sbcl from the command line, or CCL, or Allegro, or LispWorks, or any of the others, and again, just go ahead and run either through QuickLisp or using ASDF in the particular directory, and that will bring you, like I said, to this project directory that we saw over there. Now, what we're going to do now is we'll actually talk about using plugins. Now, this may be early. We haven't really talked about doing GUIs with using the clog-builder, but the reason why I'm doing this here is because it is significant in that this big part of development, hopefully in the future, not just now, is you'll be using clog, of course. I certainly hope to. But this product, of course, clog is a general purpose IDE as well. But if you are using clog, there's a lot of nice, neat little features, like I said, as a GUI builder as well for HTML documents. So now let's take a look at our project for a moment. First of all, let's go ahead and open up in another tab the actual panel that's created there. And basically, you have, of course, a list of controls. Now, the controls are, of course, are general purpose controls and W3 CSS, which is a default CSS that's used that does not have to be used, and we'll talk about that in another video. And in fact, you use Bootstrap or, for that matter, anything else that you'd like in the world. But that's what's there, which comes by default. But what is not in here is our plugin that we'd like to add, basically, which is a neat little feature that you will see right now. So let's go ahead and first of all, let's talk about that. We have to install our plugin. So one way is to go ahead and to place it into the common-lisp directory. Let's go ahead and basically give an example of that. Git clone. Okay, I went ahead and I grabbed the plotly go. We'll go ahead and install it. Now that's one way, of course. Now, if you happen to have it already installed in QuickLisp, or you've got it from UltraLisp, or or used the OCICL install method, it's all the same. Once it's in the system, then we basically are able to have access to it. So having access to it means that we can go ahead and we can open up a REPL, and same sort of idea, actual wrong REPL, wrong directory. Let's go ahead and let's say, let's do this method, for example, as well, now that it exists. Okay, let's go ahead and load the plugin in general, make sure it's in our system. Now, by the way, in general, as you know, it's clog-plotly installed in clog-builder. But if we go ahead here and I'll show you this preferences, there are ways, for example, for you to add various different plugins and keep them in the system all the time, just so they're always loaded and ready for you to use. Now, it happens to be this is only necessary, of course, if your project has, if you want to start a brand new project and you haven't used it before. But in truth, once we add the Plotly plugin to our project, anytime our project loads, it will also always load our plugin. Now, again, before we go any further, I just want to show you, you'll notice here we just installed it, so there's an old version of the controls, so it's not listed there. If I went ahead now and, let's see here, show control property, control window, there we go. Now you'll actually see our Plotly controls is already in there. Okay, so again, that's just the initial install, but in general, that's not really how we install the actual plugins. That's just how to get them on your system to be available. But once you have it on your system one way or the other, you click the plugin directory here at the button, and you plug in Plotly, right? And it will go ahead and it will load our Plotly into our system, and there you go. So in fact, in the future, just to show an example, right? Let's go ahead back to our project, right? Excuse me. Go quicker. Okay. Let's see, run QL. There we go. And of course, at this point, because our project uses Plotly, it's already going to be in our system, right? So there it is in our ASD file. And if we go ahead now and we open up that's external tab edit and panel editor, you'll see that it's already there, right? And that's exactly the case. Okay. So let's go ahead now and let's grab our particular file here, and let's get rid of this little sample text, and let's go ahead and add our Plotly control. Okay, there is no preview in this particular case, but we can run it as a sample and show you that in fact does have the full functionality of that particular plugin. In fact, if you go here and you'll see the on create, that basically is where you set up the data that you like to feed into your Plotly plugin. And like I said, it works. And if I go back to our original product here, we can go ahead and run it and see it in real motion, right? Everything there, everything ready to go. Okay, so like I said, that goes ahead and explains how it's possible to install the OCL file, the actual Plotly file, the actual Plotly plugin. Then we go ahead in the ASD project window, as we saw, we edit and we add it to the project, and then it'll show up in the project tree. You use ASD edit to get to that window, or you can go here to ASD project window, right? And then once your plugin is loaded, like I said, anytime you load up the project, it will always be present there using those scripts that we're using. Of course, if you ever going to be using QuickLisp, you can also always load up your project name /tools. It will always load up your plugins that way as well if you're working from various command lines and so forth. And that, like I said, that pretty much covers everything. One particular advanced note that I'd like to make, we've already covered the other one, and that is if you add plugins or dependencies at non-standard locations, you can add them to your project. Remember, one of the things that we've taken some cares to is make it possible to use any location on your hard drive to be able to run and use Lisp. One of those is you can go ahead and add your path to your project or path to your plugin or anything else into the ASDF central registry. As long as you put that in eval sbcl or ECL or whatever version of Lisp you're using in your run-ql file or run-ocicl file. You can basically pick up anything, any project that's located anywhere in your system. Common-lisp, that directory is always available. Windows, on Linux, anything you're using will always be available along those lines. All right. Thank you very much.